So we are less than 24 hours from early signing day commencing, and because of that, there's no shortage of topics we need to dive into. But before we do all of that, we first need to take a look back at the incredible weekend that Steve Sarkisian and the Texas Longhorns had, both on the recruiting trail and in the transfer portal, where the Longhorns made massive moves that we have got to break down. But before we can, as always, y'all know the drill. I have got to hear from you. Hop down to the comments, give me a Y for yes or an N for no. Are you excited by the moves Steve Sarkisian and the Texas Longhorns continue to make on the recruiting trail? I can't wait to hear from you. If you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe, hit that bell notification as I do constant college football content. You don't want to miss any of it, and if you enjoyed the content, be sure to like and comment down below, as those interactions seem small. They are massive to content creators such as myself. But having said all that, let's jump right into this. And where do we begin? Should we begin in the transfer portal where they got massive wins, or should we begin in recruiting where they got massive wins? And I guess because early signing day is tomorrow and we're going to be talking about recruiting so much, we'll start with the transfer portal where Longhorn fans are going to be over the moon. Let's start on the offensive side of the ball, where Matthew Golden, wide receiver, transfers to Texas, and this is a big one. The Texas Longhorns were getting active in the transfer portal looking for a wide receiver, so being able to identify one that Steve Sarkisian likes to be able to put into his system, that's huge. We know what Sark does with wide receivers. We know what Sark does with his offense. And one of the things we've seen from Texas is they're purposeful in the transfer portal. I just got done talking about this when it pertained to the Alabama Crimson Tide, that Alabama and Nick Saban, they navigate with purpose in the transfer portal. They're not taking a bunch of guys. They're taking a few guys that fit extremely well. And thus far, Steve Sarkisian and the Texas Longhorns have done just that, and I think Matthew Golden is another name that's going to go to Texas and do well, especially in this offense, especially with Quinn Ewers looking to come back. It could be huge for the Horns, but I'll tell you what was massive for Texas, and that was the other win they got out the transfer portal this weekend. Andrew Mukuba transferring from Clemson to the Longhorns. I don't think there's any underselling what a big win this is, especially as we have this conversation and we'll carry it into recruiting, because this isn't the only safety that Texas was able to get on the trail. In fact, they flipped Xavier Filsaime from Florida to Texas, and he is a five-star guy. Ranks as the number 30 guy in all of high school football per the 24/7 Sports Composite, and the number 2 safety in the nation. Texas identified a need, and they went out and answered that need. And this is something we talked about last year with Steve Sarkisian. We had this conversation whenever he got hired. Whenever Steve Sarkisian came to Texas, Nino had an unbelievable video that I still reference to this day about the lack of offensive line recruiting that Texas had done before Sarkisian got there. What did Kyle Flood and Steve Sarkisian do? Well, they poured all their resources to the offensive line and built a formidable offensive line. We fast forward. You're in a situation where your biggest need is inside linebacker. What do? Well, you go get the number 1 inside linebacker in the nation, Anthony Hill, who's already shown, even though he's a true freshman, is going to be a difference maker, and he's going to be a thorn in the side of a lot of teams in the SEC. That is a truth a lot of people are going to come to realize very soon, a truth that Texas fans already know. So this staff has been great at finding needs and addressing them through recruiting. And Texas has always recruited well. I'm not going to go into the spiel, but there is a difference in recruiting well and recruiting to your needs and doing it well. And this Texas staff is doing the latter, where so many before them did the first. They just recruit well. It is totally different, the style of recruiting. When we look at Texas this year, there was a need to start off the year that we knew Texas would have to answer, and it was at that edge position. How do you answer it? Well, you go and get Colin Simmons, a 5-star edge who plays for Duncanville in your state. In Duncanville, one of the best high school teams in all of high school football in the nation. So you like his ability to translate from the high school ranks to the college ranks, because he's played a lot of guys that are going to be playing on college Saturdays, and he's practiced against guys that are going to be playing on Saturdays. You love getting in Colin Simmons. It answers a need, but during the course of the year, things started changing and things started becoming far more clear for this coaching staff. Something that I think they probably knew before the season began, but it became crystal clear as the season progressed that they needed more help in the secondary. Yeah, you've got some young guys in that secondary that I think are going to be really, really good players. Manny Muhammad, I think he is going to be an ace defensive back for the Longhorns. I think he is going to be a star, but you still don't argue with the fact that you need more help. If we were going to say anything was the weakest part of the Texas Longhorns football team this year, it would be the secondary, and I say that by saying we're splitting hairs in saying that. The Texas defensive front is phenomenal. You look at the interior of that defensive line, two of the best guys in all of college football. You look at the linebacking core, Binda and Ford, I don't think get the recognition they deserve, not even close. The front of that defense is really, really good. And they have some guys in the secondary that are very good. Jahdae Barron, for instance. But you need more. So you start off the year understanding that your major need is at edge, defensive end, whatever you call it, outside linebacker. You go out and get Colin Simmons. A huge win for PK, and especially when we start talking about the Texas defensive scheme that relies so heavily on the Jack and X outside linebacker position. In order to find ultimate success, you go out and get a 5-star at that position. The year progresses, and now you realize we need help in the secondary, so what do? Not only do you answer your biggest need pre-season, that edge, now as the season progresses, you know you need secondary help. You flip a 5-star safety from Florida, and then you get one of the best players in the transfer portal, Andrew Mukuba, a guy that when he went to Clemson as a true freshman, started making a difference and turned heads. That is a massive win, and that is how you recruit so that you can continue moving forward. One thing I love about this staff for Texas, and they are not the only staff that does it, far from it, but I love when staffs do this. They don't sit on their hands. You move forward. You have to keep progressing in this industry. And Steve Sarkisian has showed he has no interest in sitting idly by and letting other people get big-time wins. He's going to get aggressive, he's going to put the pedal to the metal, and he's going to try and get big-time flips and wins. So with early signing day quickly approaching tomorrow, I can't wait to hear from you some names that you think the people need to be watching. But what a weekend for Texas. They also got a big-time tight end win in the class of 2025, and the only reason we're not talking about that more is because we're so hyper-focused on the class of 2024 right now with early signing day, with the transfer portal. But it all goes into one conversation. The conversation as to how well and how effective this staff is recruiting for the Texas Longhorns. And so the question I have for all of you as we part ways, do you believe that Texas is going to get a massive flip come tomorrow? Let me know what you're thinking. That's it. See ya.